For more than 2 decades, I nurtured my stepdaughter as if she were my own, investing my soul in every chapter of her life. Mere weeks before her wedding, which I had fully financed, she chose her long-absent biological father to escort her down the aisle. My name is Ethan Mallister, and at 54, I've carved out a life from modest roots. My father labored in a steel mill, my mother cleaned homes, and I learned young that diligence and determination are the cost of anything meaningful. By 14, I was repairing cars, and in my 20s, I launched a small auto shop that, over time, expanded into a regional network. I'm not rich in the flashy sense, but I live well, meet my obligations, take occasional trips, and provide for my family when they need support. My wife, Marissa, is 51, and we've shared 23 years of a largely steady marriage. We have a son, Logan, now 21. Then there's Sophie, my stepdaughter, who is 26. Though not my biological child, for over 20 years, she's been my daughter in every way that counts. When I met Marissa, Sophie was only 6, her biological father, Darren, having vanished before she was born, leaving Marissa to raise her alone. I didn't just fall for Marissa, I embraced Sophie too. When we wed, I adopted Sophie with pride, legally making her mine and pledging to shield her always. I was there for her first school day, her first heartbreak, soothing her with ice cream and light-hearted films. I covered her college tuition entirely. For years, Sophie and I were tight, until Darren reappeared. 8 years ago, Darren decided he wanted to be a father. He claimed he'd embraced faith, given up drinking, and was ready to be the dad Sophie deserved. I was wary, but Sophie was intrigued, and despite my doubts, I backed her decision to connect with him. That was an error. Darren became the cool dad, lavishing her with concert passes, shiny but impractical gifts, and stories of his wild youth framed as endearing tales. He never helped with her expenses or met her practical needs, yet somehow diminished my role at every opportunity. It hurt, but I told myself Sophie knew I was the one who'd been there through it all. I was mistaken. 2 years ago, Sophie met Daniel, a decent, hard-working man who treated her kindly. When they got engaged last spring, Marissa and I offered to pay for the entire wedding, not just chipping in, but covering every dollar. We're talking $95,000 for the venue, gown, food, flowers, photography, the works. We started making non-refundable deposits immediately, and Sophie was thrilled, telling everyone her parents, Marissa and me, were making her dream wedding a reality. Darren's name never surfaced until 3 months ago. At dinner one evening, Sophie was unusually silent, toying with her food. Finally, she set down her utensil and said, "Ethan, we need to talk about the wedding. I've decided I want my biological father to walk me down the aisle and share the father-daughter dance." The words struck like a blow. This was the man who missed every milestone. Her first words, steps, everything. Reappearing only when she was grown and self-sufficient. Now she wanted him to take my place. I asked, as calmly as I could manage, what role I'd have. She avoided my eyes, mumbling that I'd still have a prime seat and be in pictures, but Darren was her true dad, and she wanted to honor him. True dad. For 2 decades, I'd been there for every scraped knee, every late-night hospital trip, every school performance, every academic crisis. Now, days before the wedding, I was relegated to a bystander. Marissa reminded Sophie of my sacrifices, the overtime I worked to fund her summer camps, the vacations I skipped for her study abroad program. But Sophie dug in, accusing me of making her wedding about myself, and claiming I was trying to buy her love with money. Then came the ultimatum. If I couldn't accept her decision, she and Daniel would elope. This is my day, Ethan. My choice. I sat in stunned silence, my world crumbling. When I spoke, my tone was cold. If I wasn't her father on her wedding day, I wouldn't pay for it either, not a dime. Let Darren cover the aisle, the flowers, the catering, everything. Sophie looked stunned, as if I'd slapped her. Marissa stood by me, though it broke her heart. Sophie stormed out, slamming the door so hard a framed photo fell. Without my funding, her dream wedding collapsed. The venue demanded the remaining balance, which Sophie and Daniel couldn't afford. The designer gown went unpaid, the caterer withdrew, the photographer took another job. Sophie turned to Darren, who offered $500 and a vague promise to sell his bike. Daniel's parents stayed out of it, dodging the conflict. Within a month, Sophie's lavish wedding became a courthouse ceremony. Neither Logan nor I was invited. Marissa attended, unable to fully turn away from her daughter, and later described a grim 10-minute affair.